Alright, the purpose of this screen recording is to let some folks know what the payroll workshop is going to look like. I've made this format here, which we're going to follow. I've got it in HTML frame and set it up so that we can all follow. This is the first part of the course called Schedule A Day Performers. In this section now, we have three assumptions that we're working on. First of all, that you're working on any live action theatrical production with SAG cast. The rules are slightly different for TV, but as we're going through, you'll see TV there, and once you understand theatrical, it's just a matter of shifting your viewpoint and looking at the rules slightly. Usually they're in the same sections. I'll show you what I mean as we go through. In every case, by the way, I'm referring every rule to the Screen Actors Guild Codified Basic Agreement. So it's not what I say, it's what the Basic Agreement says. And this course does not address employee withholdings nor producer contributions. We're assuming we got a payroll service. I did want to point out that we do cover SAG fringes as addressed in the appendix. SAG fringes are very straightforward, and the same with any other fringes. And I'm also assuming you know very little, if anything, about calculating SAG payroll. So we're going to go right through. And it's a good, even for you old-timers who've been around a bit, done some SAG calculations, this is good review. Now on the index here, I'll show you we have an intro and then workflow for the payroll accountant. And again, I want to impress you that this is not just for the payroll accountant, it's also for line producers, production managers, people like that who need to know the control points. Where do they approve? How is it filed? How can they pull it out? Who do they check with? What do the forms look like? Things like that. And then we've got, we're going to look at all the SAG schedules just to define them. In the workshop, we're really covering Schedule A, Schedule B. If you know those two, you know you will. We're going to quickly also do Schedule F, deal performers. So if you know those three, the rest of them all fall into place. We're going to work on theatrical, live action production. TV is right beside it. In most cases it's the same, some it's a little different, but once you're used to the rules, it's just a little tiny bit of a shift. So then what I do is I take this mocked up fella named Joe Gloggs, and I follow through a natural progression. Like, he has an audition, he's hired for the role. How do you pay him? You know, how does the paperwork flow? He gets fitting before he works. How do you pay him? What's the flow? Travels, say he travels from Los Angeles to Atlanta. How do you pay him? How does it fit? Then there are these forms, Screen Actors Guild Production Time Reports they're called, and they're also called an Exhibit G. So Exhibit G is easier to say. So we're going to show how the Exhibit Gs work, how the assistant directors put the times on, get the cast member to sign, and the payroll accountant uses those times to create a time card. And then we have definitions involved with what's a work week and what's a work day and things like that. We also define when does overtime kick in, what are the kinds of overtimes. And then Joe Gloggs also has a rest period invasion violation, also called turnaround. Forced call, it's also called. So now, then he has one of that. Well, how do you pay that? Okay, meal penalties. Well, Joe Gloggs has some meal penalties. How do you pay it? What's the rates? How does it work? He gets per diems because he's out of town. Well, we have to comply with the IRS. They have very specific rules. We're going to cover how that is looked after. There's a convention for assigning accounts codes that I and most production accountants have, very similar conventions. We're going to use that so that anyone's not caught flat-footed on how to code these things. And then we're going to practice a bunch. 7. I've set up times for 7 different cast Schedule A day performers to travel from Los Angeles to New York to work. They all work. They are at their own situations, all like this. We're going to practice these together, and you're going to compare your calculations to mine. And I have more information in the appendices. So now, in each case, you know, we cover it all. I go through it, and we have at the beginning of every section any form that you're going to need, any worksheet that you're going to need, is all presented here for you. You're going to download it off the internet. That's why you got to bring your laptop. and we work with it together. I will have an overhead projector to demonstrate, and you will all have your laptops and you'll start working. I'll wander around the room, make sure everybody's doing it cool. I'm going to have a printer there, and I will print out various things so you guys can have some more practice, like filling out an I-9 form with the actor if you've never done that before. So that's the beginning of every single section. Everything has its own reference to the Screen Actors Guild Codified Basic Agreement, and that agreement is broken down into bits so that we can look at it. Say, for instance, let's take fittings in section D here. We've got Joe Gloggs gets a fitting. Here there's very specific SAG CBA rules, so I've cut out just the rules there in like 3 pages or 2 pages of the CBA, the SAG Codified Basic Agreement, and you have that separate. Every one of these things are, every one of these downloads, these PDF documents, you will have on your CD, and you can put it on your hard drive in your own folders and keep track of it for future reference. All good stuff. We got a ton of good stuff there. Now this is just SAG Schedule A. We're also, in the Appendix 2 I talk about background actors. Once you can do Schedule A and Schedule B, these guys are a piece of cake. But we do refer to it, and you'll get a hold of the OT rules. It's all here. Other things in the appendices like fringes. By the time you're done Schedule A, I spend a lot more time on Schedule A than the other ones, because that's the way I learned. I learned to cast first. Cast at least has very specific, tight rules, and once you know cast, the other ones start to fall into place, and you'll find you snowball. Alright, so that gives you a good reality on Schedule A day performers. The Schedule B is the same for day performers. Schedule F is even easier. That's the deal performers. I'm sorry, I said Schedule B is a weekly performer. Schedule F is a deal performer, $65,000 or over. They have one big deal, and it's very simple. Then we do the Directors Guild, and then we do IATSE. We're working mostly on the National Low Budget Agreement, but we do also touch on area standards and the Basic Agreement in the West Coast. Once you know IATSE National Low Budget rules, you'll find the rest of them fall into place. And then finally we'll look at Teamsters, and that'll seem very simple after all this. The Teamsters that I'm looking at, though, aren't New York style Teamsters. They're Teamsters everywhere else. Alright, hope that gives you a good reality, and hope to see you at one of my workshops.